Hey, what's happening, sports fans? Matthew Bellman, Ryan Kostrowski here. This is the DFS 5-pack. If you could do us a monster favor and click that thumbs up button or subscribe to the station if you're new to it, it is much appreciated. We're here to talk about the three-game slate on Saturday, the 9th of January. We will drop the Sunday slate information for you guys tomorrow. We will have write-ups and we will have official breakdowns and members-only videos for all paying customers. Let's get after it, man, as we start down the path of my Packers taking on your Browns in the Super Bowl, right?
Of what I wouldn't give for that. I think the Packers are a little bit more likely than the Browns at this point. But yeah, man, you're speaking my love language.
Just because we got the bye. We got the bye. Also, we don't have to face the Bills or the Chiefs, which makes things a little bit better.
Well, I mean, you guys are the 1 seed in the NFC. We're the 5 seed in the Browns. You guys are a little bit better than the Browns. Aaron Rodgers, that's all that needs to be said.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I won't argue any of those points, guys. So we got a bunch of playoff weeks left, guys. NFL package for the rest of the year is $10. Sign up on the website. If you want the write-ups and the members-only videos for the rest of the year, $10. Send it via PayPal. I'll hook you up and get all that stuff emailed out to you. Again, subscribe to the station if you're new to it. We've been out here crushing NBA all year, and we will continue to do that. Let's talk about some of our favorite plays on the slate. What sucks, and I brought this up to you, is our best NFL video of the year was last week because all the public picks absolutely went off. So let's hopefully we can continue that vibe all the way into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about that, man.
So speaking of the quarterback position, not a lot of great options on either of these slates, mostly because of the byproduct of the fact that we're in the playoffs. It's cold weather. We have a lot of good defenses. The guy that we're looking at right now that to me is a tough fade is going to be Josh Allen, especially if Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs are like at least close to full goes in the game, because those guys both have a little bit of questionable health. The Colts defense is not awful, but as far as some of the defenses that they're going up against this weekend, they are one of the more desirable teams to go after. I think the big question you have to ask yourself on this one is, does Josh Allen take that next step this year? And what I mean by that is he already did in the regular season, but can that translate to the postseason? Because in the regular season, he's one of the best DFS quarterbacks out there. He's one of the best quarterbacks, period, out there. The addition of Diggs has been monstrous for him. He's been a beast all year. He throws in those rushing yards. I'm going to bet on Josh Allen and the Bills, who, if you look at some of the advanced analytics, are actually like the best offense in football this year, to take that next step. A little cause for pause, and I get it if you're not buying in yet, but for me, there's a lot of risk in not playing him on the slate.
Yeah, too much risk in not playing him as far as I'm concerned. I might even think the risk of the Bills is a little bit bigger than you. Haven't seen it in the playoffs. They lost last year to a mediocre Texans team who obviously was better last year with Hopkins, etc. The Bills are projected to win this game, and on paper, they're the better team than Indianapolis. I'm not so sure it's as easy as everyone thinks. However, the other options on this slate just don't even compare to Josh Allen. We went through all of them on the members-only video, so if you want more detail, check that out. Sign up to become a member. But Allen's upside combined with his floor is just too real on a slate where the salary doesn't matter. So if this was a main slate and, there were expensive guys all over that we wanted to roster, maybe we'd look to spend down here, but that's just not the case.
I wanted to touch on the point you brought up that salary doesn't matter. Guys, it's not that salary isn't available to these guys, but we played around with the builds. And quite frankly, you can get whoever you want this week. It's not really difficult. Unless you're really, really marking down a guy like a Jonathan Taylor as like a must play, which I get it. If you feel like the Colts are a strong play this weekend and you want to go that direction, okay. All right, we can talk about that one. But outside of that, like, there's just the expensive guys are just not in an abundance this weekend, at least not guys that you feel like you need a roster, making him really, really easy to pay for. Like, I would be flabbergasted if more than one other quarterback outscores Josh Allen. I could see somebody else beating him, but I don't think like a bunch of guys are going to beat him.
For sure.
Okay, let's keep on moving down the list, and I think we're going to touch on the other side of the ball in this game. So last week you were like Matt Rounders in the opening scene of Matt Damon in the opening scene of Rounders. You were all in on Jonathan Taylor. This week's a little bit different, as the Buffalo Bills are a lot better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everybody's better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we want to talk about the other running back who still gets some looks, and that's Nyheim Hines. We've been using a saying here at the 5-pack for the last month or two. Tell yourself a story about how this game works out. If you think the Colts pull the upset and they win this game, well, then you probably like Jonathan Taylor. However, if you think that this game works out the way, some of the betting public does and that Buffalo can get a lead and maybe even win this game handily, check out Nyheim Hines for only 4,700. He is the PPR guy. Phillip Rivers loves dumping off to the running back. And if the Bills can get a lead early here, I think Nyheim Hines might be one of the better plays on the slate.
Yeah, agreed. We kind of like, well, not kind of, we like a couple guys like this on this slate, and Hines is, the top guy. He's going to be good in all game scripts because he's one of the better players on their offense. He's good. We've seen a couple games this year where he's just taken over. However, in a game where Indy's a significant underdog, they're expected to lose, you expect them to have to be throwing in the second half, and that's where Hines thrives. This is kind of the reason, we mentioned that salary just isn't a huge deal on this slate. You can roster whoever you want. Guys aren't too expensive. And if you're taking the approach that Indy's trailing in this game and you want Hines over Taylor, then it just makes it that much easier.
Yeah, if you operate under the assumption and your story is that you kind of just want to go with the predicted outcome, which is the Buffalo Bills winning the game, which, again, that's always up to you guys how you feel like these games are going to work out. There is every possibility that Nyheim Hines scores as many points as Jonathan Taylor in that situation. However, that's one of the reasons that maybe Taylor isn't as owned as he should be. And if you believe in the Indianapolis Colts right here, they're probably going to get there by running the football because Phillip Rivers has seen better days.
Yeah, like if I agree with you. If you're playing the normal script, how this game would usually work out, Hines could easily outscore Taylor just because of his receptions alone. However, I also agree with you. If Indy wins this game and they get the lead, I would assume that it's because Taylor has a big game.
Well, and then we go back to the idea that, we've never seen Buffalo do anything in the playoffs before. Guys, in the AFC, you haven't seen anybody do anything in the playoffs anymore because Tom Brady's in the NFC and Big Ben is about 1 million years old and really the only quarterback with much experience left out there because Patrick Mahomes ain't playing this weekend.
That's true. I was going to say, except for KC, but then you threw that in there.
Yeah, I mean, if Mahomes is on this slate, give me some Patrick Mahomes, but he's not.
That's true.
All right, next up, here's a guy with a little playoff experience because he's a little bit of an older player, although in a brand new situation right here. That is everybody's favorite well-behaved football player, Antonio Brown. We all saw Mike Evans really get banged up last week. Now, Evans is a tough guy. He's probably going to try to play this week, but if you think he's anywhere close to 100%, then I got news for you. He's just not. That was a rough injury last week. And if it wasn't for the fact that Evans is such a hard ass, I don't even think he would be out there. But he's a legitimate tough guy, so he's going to play this weekend, in my best guess. Washington has a hellacious pass rush. I do not think the Tampa Bay offense goes off right here, but I do think that they are going to garner enough PPR points for a guy like Antonio Brown at this salary to give you a very solid stat line. He's not what he was a couple of years ago because, most people get older. He's not playing the same system he did. He's also stuck around really good wide receivers. They got Gronk. They got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin. So we saw his breakout party last week, and I just like the idea of some shorter, kind of, more intermediate routes for a guy like AB, just doing enough this week to kind of get you where you want to be in your contest.
Yeah, I liked him a lot last week. I've liked him a bunch this whole year since he's been in Tampa. I'm a big AB fan. He looks good. And last week, not only was the game log, he played very well as far as fantasy points, at close to a 40 spot. He just looked like the AB of old. So I agree with you. I don't think this is a blow up spot for him, but at 6K, I think he's going to get a bunch of targets. Brady really likes him, which is huge. He feels comfortable with him. Again, I agree with you wholeheartedly about Evans. I think he's, much closer to not playing than being a huge part of the offensive game plan this week. He's hobbled. So you're going to look like AB and Godwin are the two main beneficiaries of that. Both those guys can get open. I like both of them. Brown's $1,000 cheaper.
Next up, as we move on down the list, let's go back to the Indianapolis Colts, and let's go back to that game script theory that the Colts fall behind. And I do want to reiterate, we haven't seen it in the playoffs yet, but it's not like this Colts team is, riddled with playoff experience either, right? So It's kind of, two of the same things right there. And Buffalo's been rolling. You take that Hail Murray away from them, and they've won, almost every game for the last 2-3 months or whatever it's been, and their offense has been rolling. So if you're operating under that assumption, it's time for the Colts to have to throw the ball a little bit more. Well, that's where Jack Doyle can come in at $2,900. This goes back to the whole idea that you brought about, that salary is not really a major concern this week. And Jack Doyle's kind of back to being the number one tight end in Indianapolis. Mo Alley Cox has like 3 catches over the last month and a half or whatever pathetic numbers they are. Burton's got like 40 yards over the past 4 games or something like that. Doyle at 2,900 is a guy who could be needed in this situation. Another thing that we didn't even mention under Josh Allen and Nyheim Hines, we think this game is by far the best chance to see something like 35 to 24 or 27 or something like that. The most likely game to blow up offensively, so it makes sense to want to get some pieces.
Yeah, like if there's one game to stack on this slate, at least for my eyes, it's definitely this game. You get a piece under 3K, a guy that Phillip Rivers trusts. We know he loves his tight ends, and we think they're going to be throwing here. Different game script than they've had recently. Like him quite a bit, as a cheap spend-on option if you need it. You might not need it, but tight end also isn't really a loaded position. So the other part that we didn't even talk about, especially in tournaments on these smaller slates, you could leave money on the table, and it's not inconceivable to see Jack Doyle be, the top or the second highest scoring tight end on this whole slate.
Like if money wasn't a factor, I would bet on Logan Thomas to outscore Jack Doyle. But
Right.
that doesn't mean I'm right. Money is a factor, as Logan Thomas is almost twice as expensive as him. Also, if we think there's offense in this game, like it's not crazy to think that Jack Doyle falls in the end zone this week. I know he hasn't scored a ton this year, but you throw in the Burton and Mo Alley Cox touchdowns, it's not like the tight end position doesn't get some love for the Indianapolis Colts and Phillip Rivers. We also expect Indy has to throw right here. And he is dirt cheap. And if you want a Stephon Diggs, if you want a Jonathan Taylor, if you want a Josh Allen, yes, money's not a huge factor, but it is still a factor. You can't legitimately get every single good play.
You pretty much can. But my point is really like, I don't know. Like if he falls into the end zone, I think he does outscore Logan Thomas. And we're not talking about like Travis Kelce here. It's Logan Thomas. It's not inconceivable at all to see Jack Doyle outscore Logan Thomas. Like even if they were the same salary.
All right, so we're going to talk about the Rams defense right now. And I think the big part of what you like about them, well, it's 2, right? Like 1, they're good, which is always a thing you like to have in your back pocket. 2, I don't think that they're going to get a ton of love on this slate. We got a bunch of defenses that we can play. I think the Bucs against Alex Smith and the Redskins get more love. I think the flip side of the ball with Seattle gets a little bit of love. One point that you love to address is the fact that defenses are pretty random. And even though Russell Wilson's a very, very good quarterback, this Rams team plays him tough, and he will take some sacks. And they got a couple of good players in Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. If you guys haven't heard of them, they do their job pretty well.
Yeah, 2 of the top probably 5 best defensive players in football. The number 1 guy, and then Ramsey's awesome himself. So I think the Rams are in a sneak. Well, I don't want to say they're in a good spot, but this is the playoffs. No team is going to be in like a crush spot. Obviously, even Tampa is playing a Washington team who wasn't very good this year. Washington's been better, and they're also on the road. So you get a Rams team kind of with their backs up against the wall. Played well last week, beating Arizona in a must-win. Again, their defense is what's going to carry them. So I think in a game between 2 familiar opponents, this is a team that's seen Russell Wilson. Wilson's a guy that has big upside, but we also know he takes a lot of sacks. He's not turnover prone when you get pressure on him. And the Seattle offense, as well as their defense has played, the Seattle offense is far from what they were at the beginning of the year. So I think if the Rams are going to win this game and be competitive here, they're going to need a big effort from their D. And this is the D that can make it happen.
I mean, I brought this up on the members only video. I don't know if I can ever think of one team, the Seattle Seahawks this year, that has been so different from the front half of the season to the second half of the season. The front half of the season, all you did was play quarterbacks against them, and it worked every single week. Well, then there was a game against the Rams, and that was kind of the turning point of the season where the Seattle defense became bottom tier to one of the best defenses in football. Their offense went from one of the best offenses in football to a team that was really, really been struggling. They became more run-oriented. So it was an interesting team this season. I tend to think of them right now as more of the team that we saw in the second half because that's what my mind tells me because it's what I've been seeing for 2 months.
I really could see, and I don't know how it sets up because I don't know if it's the Packers or whoever. I could see the winner of this game winning next game too.
Yeah, and I could see this game final score being 0 to -3.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know how you do that, but if there's a game that's going to be very low scoring, defensive oriented, I see this one as being very low scoring and defensive oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, that's what we got for you this week. Again, we'll drop some Sunday information tomorrow. If you can click the thumbs up button, never bothers us at all whatsoever. $10 if you want the write-ups and the members only videos for the rest of the playoffs. Just use that PayPal address below and I'll get your email address associated with it, get the information out to you. And best of luck on NBA and NFL this weekend.
Thanks a lot, guys.